On Thursday, June the 10th, 2021, people across the Northern Hemisphere will have the chance to experience an angular or partial eclipse of the sun. A solar eclipse happens when the moon moves between the sun and the earth, casting a shadow on the earth, fully or partially blocking the sun's light in some areas. During an angular eclipse, the moon is far enough away from the earth that the moon appears smaller than the sun in the sky. Since the moon does not block the entire view of the sun, it will look like the dark disk on top of a larger, bright disk. This creates what looks like a ring of fire around the moon. People in parts of Canada, Greenland, and northern Russia will experience the angular eclipse. In some places, viewers won't get to see the ring around the moon. They'll instead experience a partial solar eclipse. This happens when the sun, moon, and earth are not exactly lined up. The sun will appear to have a dark shadow on only part of its surface. Viewers in parts of the eastern United States and northern Alaska will see a partial solar eclipse on June the 10th, along with much of Canada and parts of the Caribbean, Europe, Asia, and northern Africa. In the United States, the partial eclipse will be visible along parts of the southeast, northeast, Midwest, and northern Alaska. In many of these locations, the eclipse will occur before, during, and shortly after sunrise. This means that viewers will need to get a clear view of the horizon during the sunrise in order to see the eclipse. Why does the moon turn red during a lunar eclipse? Colors are one way for our brains to interpret variations in physical properties of light. These same properties cause each color of the light to behave differently when passing through a substance like air. If you've ever looked at a blue sky or a fiery sunset, you have seen this phenomenon in action. Sunlight bends and scatters as it passes through Earth's atmosphere. In the air, colors at the blue and violet end of the rainbow scattered more widely than colors like red and orange. Widely scattered blue light tints the sky when the sun is overhead on a clear day. Redder light travels a straighter path through the air. We can only see it scattered throughout the sky around sunrise and sunset. When sunlight has traveled through a thick slice of the Earth's atmosphere before reaching our eyes. During a lunar eclipse, some of this heavily filtered morning and evening light makes its way all the way through the Earth's atmosphere and eventually reaches the lunar surface. The eclipsed moon is dimly illuminated by red-orange light left over from all of the sunsets and sunrises occurring around the world at the time. The more dust or clouds in Earth's atmosphere during the eclipse, the redder the moon will appear. Are all supermoons red? And are all lunar eclipses supermoons? The answer is no and no. Supermoons and lunar eclipses are different phenomena that do not always occur at the same time. In our solar system, the only object that shines with its own light is the sun. The light always beams onto Earth and Moon from the direction of the sun, illuminating half of our planet in its orbit and reflecting off the surface of the moon to create moonlight. Like Earth, the moon has a day side and a night side, which change as the moon rotates. The sun always illuminates half of the moon, while the other half remains dark. But how much we are able to see of the illuminated half changes as the moon travels throughout its orbit. Let's take a look at the individual phases and how movements of the sun and moon appear to us as we watch from Earth. The new moon. This is visible phase of the moon with the illuminated side of the moon facing the sun and the night side facing Earth. In this phase, the moon is the same part of the sky as in the sun and rises as sets with the sun. Not only is the illuminated side facing away from the Earth, it's also up during the day. Remember, in this phase, the moon doesn't usually pass directly between Earth and sun due to the inclination of the moon's orbit. It only passes near the sun from our perspective on Earth. The waxing crescent. This silver of a moon occurs when the illuminated half of the moon faces mostly away from the Earth, with only a tiny portion visible to us from our planet. It grows daily as the moon's orbit carries the moon's day side further into view. Every day the moon rises a little bit later. First quarter. The moon is now a quarter of the way through its monthly journey, and you can see half of its illuminated side. People may casually call this a half moon, but remember, that's not really what you're witnessing in the sky. You're seeing just a slice of the entire moon, or half of the illuminated half. A first quarter moon rises around noon and sets around midnight. It's high in the sky in the evening and makes for a beautiful view. Waxing gibbous. Now most of the moon's day side has come into view and the moon appears brighter in the sky. Full moon. This is as close as we can come to seeing the sun's illumination of the entire day side of the moon, so technically this would be the real half moon. The moon is opposite the sun and viewed from Earth, revealing the moon's day side. A full moon rises around sunset and sets around sunrise. The moon will appear full for a couple of days before it moves into waning gibbous. As the moon begins its journey back towards the sun, the opposite side of the moon now reflects the moon's light. The lighted side appears to shrink, but the moon's orbit is simply carrying it out of view from our perspective. The moon rises later and later each night. Last quarter. The moon looks like it's half illuminated from the perspective of Earth, but really you're seeing half of the moon that's illuminated by the sun, or a quarter. A last quarter moon, also known as a third quarter moon, rises around midnight and sets around noon. Waning crescent. The moon is nearly back to the point in its orbit where we day side directly faces the sun, and all we see from our perspective is a thin curve. Moon energy is feminine energy. Our bodies are 70% water and flows more freely during new moon. Just as the ocean rises, the moon influences the tide, its frequency affects the human body. Heightened activity can be creative or productive during this time. It also have the effect to pull out suppressed thoughts and emotions. The full moon can affect your sleeping patterns. The term lunatic or lunacy refers to the behavior of people that are so affected by the moon's energy that they act out in an abnormal or lunatic way.